Welcome back to Podkast with a K. I'm your host, Christian Mishka. Here with me is co-host Steven Laczko. We are bringing to you episode, we believe, number 7, and we're going to get right into it with the real talk, and you see it right below, displayed for you, Careers with a K. That is not like a special sort of career that you can have when you work for me. It could be, maybe.
That's the kind of career I want.
But yeah, so I guess I will start this off with, there's going to be a link in the video description. It's like a 10-minute video. It's something that I found about a year ago, and I shared it with Steven and some friends. We talked about it a little bit before, and we've kind of had conversations of this theme throughout because, you know, we're both in our early 20s and just beginning life, which is kind of a crazy thought to have. But I just want to summarize kind of like the bullet points of this video so we have somewhere to start the discussion. And it basically talks about the difference between a hobby, a job, a career, and a vocation. And it defines each of those, where a hobby is completely for pleasure. There's no stakes. You're not dependent on your hobbies for money. Jobs are required. They pay the bills. There's kind of a contract of taking care of yourself. You need to have a job in order to take care of yourself. It doesn't have to be awesome. It doesn't have to be joyful. It doesn't have to bring you joy. A career, on the other hand, is not required, and it's a job that you enjoy and love. And then a vocation is kind of like a divine calling. It's the highest pursuit that someone can have, and it cannot be taken away from you. So a career could be taken away from you. Whoops, I don't know what just happened there. I flashed. A career cannot be taken away from you, or can be taken away from you, but a vocation cannot. So it's something that comes from within, and something that you can do kind of despite the external environment. It's like a motive. So those are kind of like the more basic definitions that they give in that video. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to how you perceive those.
I think we'll get into it.
Okay. So I think this is a good start for just kind of having words to talk about and understanding the differences. One thing that we haven't talked about how we're doing this segment, but one thing that we could do is we could talk about how we fit into each of these roles, or kind of like what we're viewing from our perspective, like what do we view as our job? What do we view as our hobby? Do we have a career? Do we have a vocation? Like, that's not something you have to have. And then I don't know. We can also talk about the usefulness or maybe educational aspects in raising people up in these aspects. But I know you also had some questions. So where do you think we should go from here?
Yeah. Perhaps we should start where we are by describing what we have.
Sure. Do you want to go first?
Say that again?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So we got hobbies, jobs, careers, and vocations. So I certainly have some hobbies. A couple. I've been getting into meditation, doing a little bit of video editing, playing RPGs with friends, stuff like that. Hold my analysis for a moment. Career or job, I have a job. I work at a software / hardware firm actually now, full stack. It's a job. Career? No, I don't have a career right now.
Yep.
I don't have a job that I like. No, I don't have a job I just like love and like I want to devote time to it, you know. And vocation, no, I don't. I feel like those are vocations, as is stated in the video. If anybody watches that, in case you watch that, you don't have as much control over that in my view.
Mm-hmm.
So what about you?
So for me, it took me a second to think about what my hobbies are. I always have to remind myself. This is like the one question that people ask me. I was like, what is my hobby? But I think from what I thought about, Rubik's Cubes and chess are definitely hobbies. They're things that I enjoy doing. They kind of have like, I guess maybe all hobbies are this way. I don't know. It's not something I love all the time. It kind of has peaks and valleys throughout my life. In the past, I have said that like programming is my hobby, but it's definitely not my hobby because of other reasons that I'll talk about in a second. I think art is a hobby of mine, but it's not something I pursue all the time. Yeah, so I mean, art in various forms. So it could be drawing, it could be video editing. I did a bunch of that in high school. Um, those are kind of the things that have been more constant throughout my life, I guess, or have a larger period of time in my life that have been hobbies. There's other things that I want to be hobbies that aren't currently hobbies, but I don't need to iterate on that right now. I currently have two jobs right now. I'm working at a game company and I'm working at another company that does a bunch of document analysis and machine learning stuff. And so both of those fit the description of being required to pay the bills. And then as for career, a job that I enjoy and love, and I also see a career as something that you kind of like, you're in it to continue developing, right? And if you asked me this question a year ago, I might have told you that I'm already in. Well, no, I don't know if I would have told you that. Never mind. If you asked me last year, I would have said that my ideal career would have been in computational linguistics, working for a company like Duolingo or something that deals with human-computer interfaces like Google or Amazon. But I wouldn't want to work for a company that big. So I don't think currently I'm in a state of career where I absolutely undoubtedly love the job that I have. That being said, I'm kind of like in the positions that I'm in like a junior position and an internship position. So those are kind of smaller positions. And I think, as time goes on, I'll probably be finding a career. I think I have reason to believe that I will be in a career because I do enjoy the work, like programming as an art, I guess, or as a work, as a job. The technical aspects of it and those kinds of things. So it's not like the work I currently have, I do enjoy. It's just I could enjoy it more, I suppose. But it's not like some jobs to people where it's like, oh, it just brings them no joy. It's like, well, there might be random things that bring them joy in the job, like, oh, I met a person at the cafe I was working at today or whatever. But yeah, so in that sense, I guess I'm kind of on the edge as to whether or not my current position would be a career or not. But that's definitely something I'm trending towards. Vocation, I think I have a vocation. I don't think it's not something I've acted on. Well, that's not true. I have a vocation, and I think it has to do with education. I care a lot about education. I've already talked about it. I've grown up in a homeschool environment, and I don't know if I mentioned specifically, but I've tutored since. I actually don't know the exact year. I tutored since high school. It's been like 6 years of tutoring that I've done. So there was a couple years in high school, and then all throughout college, I tutored at the co-op, and I really enjoy that. I love teaching people. It brings me joy, and I like to see people prosper and learn. So that's definitely something that I think will stick with me as I go forward. And I have a lot of things that I want. Like we've talked about education before. We've got ideas. I'm working on some things in the background right now. So yes, I have a vocation, and that's not something that everybody has or needs to have, but it's nice to have.
Good night. Mm-hmm. Sleep tight.
Alexa, no!
Oh no.
Oh, we're good. That was a way to end that.
Right on time.
Yeah. So careers. We're asked 100 times a month about this kind of thing in our times at our period of life. And what do we answer? Like, I feel a lot of people don't think of career as how that video actually defined it.
Sure.
I think that a lot of people think of career as a field you go into. It's literally just like what you have studied to do.
Like a specialized job, perhaps.
It's like your specialty.
Yeah.
Like, what is your specialty in work? There's your career, right? And mostly true for parents, but you're expected to go into it. They somewhat expect you to continue in it and continue to grow in it. But they don't usually, loving it doesn't come into it all the time.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? So to think of a career in this way is a little different. I think it's valuable though because, well, even if it didn't have the love aspect, the passion aspect for your work, it would be distinct from a job. Because a job isn't necessarily a field that you're specialized in. Like, you're not necessarily working in a field you've specialized in.
Mm-hmm.
You can work as a cashier or a whatever, janitor,
Sure.
jobs. But when you're specialized in something, then it gets sort of interesting. I feel like we actually need a whole nother category.
Yeah, like something that's I think the distinction you're trying to make is a job that you don't really need too many qualifications for, and a job that is more specialized, that requires more in depth in the knowledge or the field that it requires.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So like it's a long-term thing. It's not just something where you just sign up and you get a job, right?
Yeah.
You're studying for this.
Yeah.
I mean, people in college don't just come out magically having a career, magically getting jobs they love.
Yeah.
They don't even magically love the subject they learned.
Sure.
I'm going to try and look at the camera. I'm going to attempt it.
Oh gosh.
It's
I want to try something. Oh, do you disappear? You disappear. Never mind.
Good.
Okay. Because I can make it so I can move your face up closer to the camera, but then it makes you disappear from the actual footage. So.
No.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah, I see that. So we should just come up with a word for simplicity's sake. I mean, is it a specialized job?
Sure.
Just go with that? Okay, specialized job. Don't need to write that down. So, careers. I guess, every time I think career, I think of field. I think of the field you're going into. So, how sure are you about the field you're going into?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
In computer science, I'm very sure. Well, okay, yeah, I'm very sure about the field I'm going into. It's been something that I've wanted to do for my entire life, and I do enjoy it, and yeah, I don't have any reservations with it. I think how that incorporates with my vocation is a different question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You also said that you expect to find a career.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
So why do you say that?
Because I enjoy programming, I enjoy computer science, I enjoy that problem solving aspect, and it's been something that I've enjoyed for, all throughout high school. I think some jobs, that career, I think some jobs that is a job, a specialized job, and other jobs that is a career. Because the work is more enjoyable in some situations than in others. That's why I'm saying that. I think, I have the specialty to go into those in various jobs, and some of those I think I would find more enjoyable. So I think some of those would be careers, and those would be the ones I want to trend towards. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I feel like I want to focus on careers and then maybe focus on vocation.
Sure.
Just to structure it a little. So do you think college students are expected to what is college? What is society looking for in college students? What are they expecting them to find? Are they expecting them to find a career? Are they expecting to just find a long-term field to be in?
What is society?
Yeah.
What are colleges?
Huh. Well.
So, I think if you're going with society, I think like the question that we often get asked our age is like, what do you want to do with your life? I think that's typically how it's phrased. It's not necessarily what career are you going into. Maybe it's phrased that way sometimes, but it's like, what do you want to do with your life? So society cares about the things that you do, and they care about like the security that brings. And I think that a specialized job would satisfy that criteria of security. And therefore a career would also satisfy that criteria, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could stand by that. So I think that society values that security, whereas schools, that might not be their concern. What do they? What are they?
Yeah, what is colleges? What is universities' concerns? I mean, the cynic in me just wants to say money.
Sure. So
And I don't think I'm strictly wrong about that.
No. So I mean, it depends on the university you're talking about, because there's some universities that are research focused, and then there's some that are teaching focused. So
True.
research focused ones are going to have an incentive to bring more researchers and tenured positions onto them, so they can continue to produce research and continue to get funds through the government and those means. The ones that are more focused on teaching are going to want to have more students. So I think that if you just analyze it from that perspective, and that's very bare bones, and I don't know a lot of information, about the inner workings of that. But I think if you just take those kind of higher level views, the ones that are more research focused are going to try to produce more MDs, PhDs that can do more research for them, so they can get more money. If money is kind of the optimization function here. The ones that are more teaching focused, they're probably also going to want to have more doctors to teach, but they might not have to get them from within their school system, right? They could get them from other places. So maybe what they're optimizing for, if they're trying to have more teaching opportunities, is fields that bring in more students, because the funding is going to come from the students. So that might just focus on what is hot in the world right now. So computer science is a very hot topic. Biology is a very hot topic. Like the psychology, maybe, I don't know if that's up there, but those are some of the bigger degrees out there. So maybe the ones that focus on teaching, this is totally focused on what the university is trying to do. I don't know if that says anything about what they care about their students getting after it. They care that they get a degree.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
In the end, they get a degree. And, a good number of colleges are also, they provide services for mock interviews, getting people jobs. But I think in the end, I don't think there's not a huge emphasis on what you love necessarily. Sure,
at least not at the top interface level of a university or college, right? Like, obviously there are people within that kind of have their own power, who might value those things, right? So you might have a professor who does, or someone in that career and business center at your university who does care about those things and is making effort in that regards to that. But I would say that at the highest level of the university, that's not necessarily the concern.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. So a lot of external factors don't prioritize loving your job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't. There are certainly individuals who do, which is great. But my deep question here I want to throw at you, and I want to bite off some of this too, is how important is it to have a career? And I don't know if that's a general question we can ask, or if it's if we would have to ask individuals. It might be the case that you can't really say it's important or it's not important. Mm-hmm. It's on an individual basis. But I guess just as a starting point, personally, how important is it to love your job?
It's a very good question. I think for me, it is important. I think, my personal values, I I value work that I like. Like, I don't want to do something that I don't think is valuable, basically. I think, I want to do work that I consider valuable. And if it's valuable to me, then I'm going to like it. I think that's what I believe. I don't think that generalizes to everyone. I think that there are a lot of people who the things that they value maybe aren't as lucrative, and because of that, they're going to have a job that pays the bills, and then the things that they actually enjoy they can spend outside of that time. And I think that those are kind of the two bigger parties. Depending on what you value more, either what you value is going to align and be lucrative and pay the bills, or it's going to not align and you're going to pay the bills another way. So I think those are kind of the two parties. And I don't think either is right or wrong. I think it's totally up to the individual.
I'd say there are actually two more parties.
Really?
Yeah, and they overlap. It's people who can handle doing a job they hate or don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's 8 hours of your day every day potentially, and there are people who are okay with that, are okay with not taking a job, or doing a job for 8 hours a day that they don't have a passion for or aren't particularly interested in.
So you're saying,
but we'll get it outside of that.
Okay. So you're
people
saying
who can handle it.
Yeah. So you're saying that there's two dimensions here. One is if your values align with something that's lucrative, and the other is if you can handle doing the work or not.
Yeah.
And if all of those align, then I guess we kind of have a 4-quadrant system. If your values align with the work that you can do. Wait, I'm trying to determine, is this 4 quadrants or more?
They're kind of different. No,
it is different.
Because
you're right.
the what I mentioned is generally about people who don't have a career.
Right. Okay,
people
so there's
don't
3
have
categories.
Right. So this is like, it's talking about how important a career is to you. If it's important to love your job,
mm-hmm.
You're not going to be as okay with spending 8 hours of your day on something you don't care about. Anyway, I guess I feel like we're getting into the weeds a little, but all that is to say it's individual.
Yep.
And kind of how do we traverse these waters?
Sure. Do you want to also answer the question, or is this part of what you're trying to figure out? Sure.
No, yeah, I'd love to. And the question was,
how
important is it?
How important is it
to love your work?
Mm-hmm.
I've just started working for like the first part-time job I've ever had, 30 hours a week. I can already tell that I'm going to get real tired of it if I don't like the work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm spending so much of my day, like prime hours of my day on this. And if I don't like it, if I don't find it's valuable or interesting or something that makes me want to be there, it's gonna suck my soul out. I know what they mean by soul-sucking work now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's very important to me. I don't have a lot of experience yet, but I'd say it's pretty important to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Just in terms of how much time it takes out of your life.
Yeah. Now, okay.
Say it was half the time. Say it was 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
I could live on that. That'd be much more palatable. Like, I can do something that I don't enjoy for that much time. It's not a huge chunk of my day. I have a lot of time that I can dedicate to things I actually care. But in the world we live in, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
We can work 4 hours a day.
Well, it depends on what you do.
This is true. Yeah. Fair. But that usually takes a lot of effort to get into any kind of career where that's possible.
True. Or a job that you just do that takes less effort but happens to have higher returns.
True,
like,
but
those
nonetheless,
exist. You're going to have to put more effort up front, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have to get trained a lot further or something.
Yeah.
Sacrifice something. Maybe you work in the middle of the night, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who it's not that important to love your job and they're okay with spending that time in order to do things they like outside of that time, okay, maybe it's not such a bad deal for you. And maybe you find the work like, all right, you can just treat this as a secondary hobby more or less and get better at your job. It's like, okay, it's not that bad. But for people who care about it, I wrote this down. What kind of questions should we be asking in order to determine career? I feel like sleepwalked my way into computer science, more or less. I mean, I liked it, but did I really sit down and think about whether I wanted to do it as a career and what options there were? No. So what kind of questions do you think your average person should be asking themselves?
Sure. So I think some people from an early age will just know what they love, and they're going to know pretty much, like, maybe they're not going to know the exact career that they want, but they're going to be able to narrow it down pretty precisely. And that's just going to be something that they grew up with, and there's just some sort of innate desire, I guess. They might have seen somebody do it. They might just be totally enthralled by the ideas that it's possessed. So if they just ask themselves, has this been an interest of mine for a long time? I think that's probably a good question to ask. Other people, it might not, that kind of a phenomenon might not occur to them until later in their life. And so they might not know what they want to do in middle school and high school, even in their 20s. And those kinds of questions are going to be, I think, really focused around, have I tried a bunch of different things? What do I like of those things that I've tried? And kind of like broadening the horizons, so that they understand what the options are. Because if you don't understand the options, how are you going to make a choice? Like, for those people who just know the thing that they want to do, that's great, because they know it and they don't necessarily need to explore the other options. But it might be nice to. But for the people who don't know exactly what they want to do, I would say to explore what is out there. And maybe I'm trying to think if these are questions that they should ask themselves, or if they're questions that they should actually ask others, to kind of get an idea for what the careers are out there.
Now, I have trouble with that because there's so many.
Sure.
I understand exploration. That sounds important, but to start at exploration sounds very difficult. Sounds a little overwhelming, perhaps. Okay,
that's fair. So my mind is going two places right now. One place the one place that it's going is, I think that there should be some sort of class in the education system that does a broad sweep of careers. What are the options? What do they entail? I never had that. Sometimes we went on field trips to see a specific thing, but I never had that. I've mentioned this in the past, I discovered linguistics totally randomly because I was trying to make an app. And then I loved it, and I got a minor in it. And I didn't know that it was a thing in high school. So having, random discovery isn't just an easy thing to have. I think that having an educational class, maybe as a requirement or just as something that is because the educational entity cares about what career or job people go into, then they would offer that as a requirement because they believe that that's necessary. The other place that my mind went was to kind of, this could fall in the same category, but it could also be done on an individual. I think both could. Trying to turn the career space into kind of a structural hierarchy. And what I mean by this is, take the humanities, take the sciences, find the things that you value. I think that's important. You need to know what you value. And then you can kind of map that onto this structure, right? So do you value people? That's going to push you towards certain careers. Like if that's kind of your core value, if you value people, that's going to push you towards certain careers. If you value technology and the advancement, that's going to push you towards other careers. If those kind of overlap, people and technology, then that's going to kind of divide that further. And so I think if maybe we could try to, I wouldn't be able to do this now, but maybe something that could be done by people is quantifying what these kind of axes are and how they overlap with the different careers. Then it would just be on the matter of the individual discovering, maybe with a counselor, maybe by themselves through introspection, what they value and finding which careers that aligns with. What do you think?
Agreed. I think we're talking about young people here. Some people will be older, and I think it would be very valuable for them. I think there's some groundwork actually that we have to do in order to actually come to that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of kids, that's not in their purview. It's not in there. It's just not.
Yep.
They have a lot of other things to work out first, or at least in tandem. For instance, like figuring out their values. They might be an anxious mess, and they need to figure that out first before they even have the mental space needed to sit down and know themselves and know their values. And you could list 100 other things too. They might be kind of hyperactive and they don't want to sit down and focus on one thing. They could be depressed. My point is that there's a lot of mental training development that needs to happen early. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe earlier, and school generally doesn't seem to progress this very well.
Sure.
There's so many kids that sort of fall through the wayside and they deal with this stuff all the way into college. And it's like, you had 2 decades to handle this and at least improve it more. And it's not being improved that way. So I think basically giving kids a solid internal foundation in order to figure themselves out better, mm-hmm. that will allow them to more peacefully and more in a more centered, grounded way approach what they want to do with their lives. Because that's a big question.
Yeah.
And for, there's a lot of things in kids' minds. And I think what's useful is to calm their minds, mm-hmm. and self-development and helping them escape anxiety, depression, stuff like that would help with that.
Definitely.
That's what I think. In terms of the actual subject of looking for careers, I like your idea. That branching tree, I think it'd be a very useful tool, if not just to help people explore. Mm-hmm. Because exploring careers is just, right now, it's what do you even do? What do? You take a test. They take your MBTI type, which is more like a Big 5 type, and they try to match you up with something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't trust that very well, to be honest. I think there's a lot of intricacies involved, and there's a lot of literally self-development that needs to happen in order to understand yourself well enough and accept yourself enough to pick something.
Definitely. Ooh, my lights. It's mood lighting time.
Ooh.
I'm not going to mess with that. Yes. No. I definitely agree. We're still children, even though we're in our 20s. We're starting to accept our circumstances, but there's a lot of development that occurs in the first 25 years of life. And I think one thing that's important to note as well is that a career isn't something that needs to be decided upon in those 25 years of life. People can find their careers in their 40s, maybe even their 50s. And, it's a job that they enjoy. You can find that later in life. Of course, it might benefit you more if you find it earlier because you'll be able to enjoy it for longer. And it's easy. I think it's easier to, like, if you're getting into a very complicated field, it's probably easier to do while your mind is young, if that's what you're into. But yeah, I think in my ideal world, the educational unit would supply both what you're talking about in aiding in mental development and knowing oneself, as well as in kind of the educational side of things. So it would be responsible for both of those aspects, like creating a more well-rounded individual, and that it requires a healthy individual, I think. I thought there was one other thing on my mind, but it is not coming to me.
Well, if you think of it, bring it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this, and what I think of when I think of how difficult it is for someone like a kid or a teen to pick a career is, why do we pick it early? Why are we picking it then? Before self-development, before they've matured?
Sure.
And of course, maturation can take a long time, but why then? Just why? It's not necessarily a judgment that it's the wrong time, but why? Because a couple hundred years ago, or just maybe not that long ago, I don't know. I mean, people were going to college at 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Kids had to mature very quickly. And who knows how many of them found a career, found what they actually loved. They were just probably tossed into the family business, more or less, among other things. So why do we pick it early? Well, we used to pick it even earlier. I think we actually pick it so late because we have the luxury of doing that. We live in such a developed society that we can support people studying for longer and specializing when they do. So this leads me down a path where the problem isn't that we pick it early, it's that we frame it as this: pick your career. What are you going to do with your life right now?
As a final kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very final. It's scary. It's overwhelming. Instead, what if we framed it more like, this is your initial field of study. This is a piece of the world. This is a part of our modern world that you can choose to study and get a job with. And this way, hey, here's a cool section of the world. Here's a piece of technology you might enjoy. Here's social science that you're interested in. Go get a job with that. And continue developing yourself and continue looking for what you're truly passionate about. Like, never stop looking.
Yeah. Maybe
that should be the motto.
Mm-hmm.
Know what I mean? Basic principle to work off of. Throughout college, maybe I'm imagining it's on dorm hallways, it's on bathroom doors, it's on the website. Never stop looking for what you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a powerful change. It could be a powerful mindset change.
I think so as well. And I remembered the thing that I was going to say, and I need to decide because there's three things that I'm thinking of right now. So your first question is, well, one of the things you mentioned was why do we try to make this decision so early? And I think part of that, and we've talked about this one-on-one before, is like, or this is kind of a question that we've had before, is like, why do parents get their kids into hobbies or sports so early? It's like, you kind of find that whatever your parents get you into at a young age, you become really good at. And because you're good at it, you might be better than anybody else who didn't start at that age. So it makes that kind of inherently more lucrative because you've had that background. So it's important because the early ages of development kind of give you a bigger stronghold, I guess, in whatever you're studying. So in that sense, it's important. Again, that's not like a final thing. Like you're talking about, it's learning is an ongoing process. What you do is an ongoing process. The thing that I was thinking of from before that I forgot is also relevant, is kind of the idea of giving. So you mentioned that the time that this decision is made has kind of become later. It used to be earlier, right? Kids used to have more control over what they were doing because they had more responsibilities. And I think that maybe that's something that we should focus on, is giving younger people more responsibility over their lives, more decision making within the schooling systems, instead of approaching school as a thing that you push kids through and they learn stuff, again, regurgitate information, and then they come out with a diploma. Making the schooling unit more focused on what is the individual value, and having those tutor relationships where it's focused on the individual and the individual has a say in what they do, has more of a say in what they do. And I think that giving them that responsibility would actually encourage them more, give them more confidence, and actually cause them to grow faster. I don't know if there's probably some sort of research behind that. I haven't looked into it. And then the final thing I was thinking of, which is on the topic of kind of like a lifelong educational journey, right? Like, we're on this earth for a long period of time, and the environment changes around us. Our internal worlds change. The things we value can change. Some people it doesn't. And it's okay to change kind of the field you're going in. Now, with our current system, that can be an issue because of how expensive it can be to get into a field, and why there is maybe more of a pressure on it. It's like, oh, what is the thing you want to do? Because you're going to spend you're going to spend $50,000 to $100,000 or more if you're going to medical school on this thing, and you just got to make sure it's right. Otherwise, too bad for you.
It's pretty messed. Continue.
And I think that there's some encouraging things happening here, where a lot of things you can learn online, and we're going to see kind of a shift from the traditional education model towards more self-inflicted online learning. Mm-hmm. So I think that would help in that regard.
Agreed. And if careers and employers tended towards accepting people who are self-taught, that'd be a revolution, I think. Because I'm realizing more and more in our conversation that what I was about to interrupt you with, but held back on, was that the price of college is a systemic piece of why we think of our careers as final in college.
Yeah.
We're spending so much money on it that this must be the thing we need to do. This is the most important thing we're ever going to do in our lives. That's how it's framed. And to say in a college, to write on the walls, never stop searching, never stop looking for the thing you want to do, is a dichotomy to how colleges work right now. They take so much money. I mean, it's like a third of a house sometimes. So it's ridiculous. I love that, though. It is hopeful. Mm-hmm. It is hopeful. For instance, there's a lot of people who get into computer science and don't even have a degree. They don't need one. Yep. They Google it, they research it, they do it on their own, they get certificates, and they get hired. That's fantastic. I hope that more careers tend towards that direction, because I love what you said. I love that you mentioned like lifelong learning, because for me, I don't have, some people have this love of learning itself. And to some extent, I wish I had that. But for me, what that means to me is that it means I always have potential to do what I love, whatever that is, even if that changes. I can always learn more about what I love. And if something else just blows me away, infatuates me, I can learn about that too. Mm-hmm. Maybe even get into that field, maybe get a job there. So, it's inspiring, actually, I think. I wish our world was structured differently. I think we all do. It's just how it is. But I mean, these are the kind of conversations that started, I think.
Yeah,
I like that.
definitely. And I think also smaller companies are going to be more likely to accept people who have I keep using the word inflicted, but I don't like that.
Self-learning,
self-learned, self-taught skills. And it's the larger corporations that just need to filter through a bunch of resumes that are looking for that stamp of approval. For some people, that might be like, oh, work for a small company. That gets you effectively a different kind of a stamp of approval. You've worked for a company for a period of time, and then that allows you to go to others. In some cases, of course, there are others that require degrees. But yeah, I think it's definitely encouraging, and there's a shift going in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Udemy. One of my coworkers was just telling me about Udemy.
EDX and Khan Academy, but that's for younger people. But EDX is a really good one because that's their lecture series produced by universities, and you can do many, if not all of them, for free. And you just have to pay for a certificate, and if you want to get that certificate. So you can learn the information for free if you want, but if you just want like a stamp from them, you can get it for like $1,000 or something. And you can even do I think what's called like a mini masters on there, where it's it's like a dedicated series of a couple months of study, but it's all through their program, and it's like a fraction of the cost of a degree. I don't know how many employers are looking at that, but I imagine that they would see like, oh, you were learning this yourself, like, and it's like a master's degree, and it's by MIT or Georgia Tech or something. So I don't know what current employers would think of that, but I think that's pretty admirable.
I love that.
But those, like, because those also have that stamp of, oh, it's a big university that produced these courses, it has a bit more validation to it than a Udemy course, which is any rando off the internet, right?
Sure.
But of course, the goal would be to go from needing a stamp of approval to showing that you know what you need to know for the job.
Right. So it ends up being more on you in the job search to have a portfolio, depending on your area, your field.
Yeah.
But, portfolio, certificates, whatever certificates you can get, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I guess I just want to sum up by saying, like, don't stop learning.
Absolutely.
Never give up on learning about the things you love, the things you're passionate about. You can just keep digging into them, and you could flourish in those areas. Like the things that you studied in college or in high school or whatever, like they don't have to define you. They don't have to cling to you for the rest of your life. You can change and shift and grow into an actual career. Yeah.
Yep. Amen to that.
Amen. I think that was great.
Yeah, it was good. It was a long segment, but
it was
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. That was great. We have. I want to keep talking to you, and I'm going to. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to continue talking to you. I acted as if I wasn't, but I'm going to continue talking to you. And I'm going to talk to you about something vastly more important to me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is when we're going to transition into the real talk with a lowercase.
The real talk, lowercase letter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is this thing?
So I discovered something.
Yeah.
It's on eBay. I found a hat.
A hat.
I found a hat.
Okay.
It's not leather.
It's not leather.
It's not even fabric.
Okay.
You'd never guess what it's made out of.
Plastic.
Exactly. You guessed it. What? That's ridiculous. How did you guess that?
Wait,
did you look at my notes?
Is it made of plastic snakes?
No, it's not made of plastic snakes. It's made of melted down plastic snakes.
Oh.
You're like the Oracle from the Matrix. You just know. That's incredible. But what I found on this eBay page was a plastic hat. And you know what I realized
What did
we
you
don't have head-mounted umbrellas. You can't just go to the store and buy a head-mounted umbrella.
You're very right about this.
Aren't I? Right?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. So I know this sounds random.
Mhm,
I know
mhm.
this topic sounds very random. But I started looking into this, right?
Okay.
There's a whole line, there's a whole world out there of information about this topic and about how the big guys in the government, big tech, big industry, big manufacturing, don't want you to have these things.
Oh.
Think about, okay, tell me, who would go out of business if these got big? We're talking
Wait,
raincoat
who?
manufacturers,
Oh.
umbrella manufacturers.
I mean, they could probably reuse their products to create the hat umbrellas.
They could, this is true. But
The
if they're
raincoats would be
split,
harder.
if they're splitting their manufacturing resources, I'm just saying, there could be one company that just, entire facility, umbrella hats. That is a money-making machine right there.
It's pretty phenomenal. Are you saying that the government is hiding this from people?
I'm not only saying that. I'm saying that they are actively destroying these things. And that's what amazed me about seeing this on eBay. Once I looked into it, I was looking it up, and it took me like 4 hours before I found one of these things anywhere on the internet. And once I started Googling it, I realized that this thing is it's like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Like, these things don't exist, yet it's right there on eBay. So I bought it
You bought it.
immediately. It was an auction.
Did
and
it make it?
I bid 4 times the asking price, and he gave it to me. Luckily, we'll be in good hands. I want to bring attention to this, though, because I mean, think about
did it actually ship?
It did say it shipped. It's not here yet, though.
Mm-hmm.
So it could still be destroyed in transit. This is true.
Do you know if YouTube is censoring search results?
I did look. I mean, I looked on Google. I looked in the video section. I found almost nothing. I found a couple buried conspiracy theory videos about the topic, but a couple hundred views each. Not much, really.
Wow.
Yeah, I think this is like a really large scale censoring job going on.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've talked a lot about Comic Sans.
Yes.
On the
I was
podcast.
just going to bring them up.
Right. Yeah. So what? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, did you notify Comic Sans that this is an opportunity for business?
So the thing is that Comic Sans seems to be getting the upper hand in this situation.
Oh.
There's a potential for these to flood the market, and I think it could be Comic Sans doing it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Would it be off-brand so that it's not recognized by the natural censoring? I'm imagining mushroom hats. The natural version of umbrella hats.
That, you know what? I'd buy that in an instant. And that's right on brand for Comic Sans.
That's what I was thinking.
They're all about that stuff, man. All about the mushrooms. I think that's... They might get attacked by Nintendo, though. That's another possibility. They might not like that. Mushroom hats, Toad.
That's not a form of cannibalism, is it?
Well, you're wearing it.
Oh,
Can you wear a person's skull?
There's got to be another word for that, though. It's inhumane. Yeah. So in mushroom main or whatever.
In mushroom ain.
Yeah.
Mushroom ain. Yeah. I think you're right. So there could be some ethical implications there, and the government might crack down on that.
But, I mean, to be fair, we don't have mushroom people. Nintendo does. So Nintendo is going to be the one who has the ethical issues.
Right. They're churning them out by the dozen.
Who is?
So, Nintendo. They're churning out mushroom people by the dozen. I mean, it's probably only a matter of time, I think, before they become commonplace all over the world. Yeah, I mean
Right.
that's why the population density of Japan is so high.
The
It's
mushroom
because they're
people.
churning out the mushroom people, right? Yeah.
Right. Well, that's interesting. What does the United States think of that? Are they accepted
So,
as people?
yes, but they, well, it's kind of a civil rights issue, actually. I mean, if you remember the whole 3/5 people thing from a while ago, yeah, that's kind of the same thing going on. So, because mushrooms they sort of are rooted together they tend to be rooted together in a network, right?
Yep.
They're considering networks of mushroom people to be one conglomerate group. But mushroom people aren't physically connected. They're talking like family connections and stuff.
The issue is
yeah.
mushrooms are a lot more complicated. Like you can have multiple mushroom DNA intertwined and mutations happen within it. So it's really hard to measure that. And I
How close they
imagine,
are?
yeah, well, if they're the same biological entity and not just like symbiotic relationship. So I imagine it's about the same complexity with social networks of mushroom people.
Yeah, in fact, they're very complicated, even more than us. I mean, they don't have family like we do, right? They have their own words for. They have at least like 100 different common roles they have for people in their lives.
Right.
And so, like, you might be a foom cloth to me, but I might be a boom cloth to you. These are terms they use, and so it's a vastly more complicated network than even we have. We have what employer, peer, child, aunt, uncle. We have a number of roles, but it's nothing compared to what the mushroom people have. Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder how well their society meshes with the Japanese.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I have a couple friends there, and I've heard good things. I've heard good things with the people there. See, Japan has somewhat of a cutesy culture embedded in it, and so they've found a good spot there. They found a good niche where even if it's not exactly where they want to be, they're making progress, and people accept them there. They like them. They have positive feelings towards them, which is great. It shouldn't be necessary for them to be there, but it's definitely a bonus. In America, though, we're kind of a mess of a country. We have all sorts of people who believe all sorts of different things, and mushroom people who aren't even prokaryotic beings. I'm saying that right, I think.
Yeah.
They might be very controversial, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't the case, but it could be. And circling back, the mushroom hats, I'm wondering if Comic Sans actually wants to take those on or not, because this could get into a whole ethical issue. Right?
True.
Mm-hmm. I see it going in two directions. If you have something to say, please feel free to butt in. Just thought you had something to say there. I see this going in two directions. Either people take it as an affront to the mushroom people. You're appropriating their culture. You're just dressing up like them. Take it negatively. Or Comic Sans, if they got a good PR team, they're going to frame it like, we're accepting these people. This is for the people who are accepting these sentient beings who want to live alongside us. It's a very positive thing. It's a wholesome, optimistic movement. That's what these mushroom umbrellas represent. So it potentially could be a great force for good.
Appropriation versus appreciation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, the other issue is, the other alternative is, and this probably has higher ethical stakes, but whether or not you're going to consider having the mushroom hats as partners. So it's like a union between a mushroom person and a human person.
Right. So have you looked into the biology of this at all. I'm wondering what these hybrids would be classified under. Like, are they symbiotic beings? Are they still prokaryotes?
So you're talking about the mushroom hat with human person.
Right, yes, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, I guess it would be like a voluntary civil union between two entities, right? One being mushroom, one being human. The biology probably, I think there was a study that was just put out like yesterday, peer-reviewed, said that the two entities fuse together, forming a symbiotic relationship, a mutual symbiotic relationship, where the mushroom eats the scalp and the dandruff of the host, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the host gets fashion sense. So it's a win-win.
That doesn't sound too bad to me, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that trade-off. It reminds me of a game put out by Valve. I lose the name of it, but they had a similar system where there was a very wholesome, positive symbiotic relationship where one creature ate the skull of another, and they lived together in harmony, working together to accomplish its purposes.
Without coercion.
Without coercion. And that's how I remember it. It sounds like Valve, as they tend to do, have prophylactically invented an idea that would become an integral part of our society later on, just like cake. The cake is a lie, and all the memes they've made. Mushroom hat symbiotes. Have we talked about the relationship between Comic Sans and Valve? Have we talked about that on the podcast before?
No, we never mentioned it.
We haven't? I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really big thing. It's been under the radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna. You're not gonna just find it in the news. Like, Valve isn't gonna blog about it. But they've actually started. And you've looked this up a little, but somewhat of a partnership, I've heard. It sounds like they're coming out with a new product sometime soon.
Yeah, that's right. They're coming out with a new product. It's supposed to help humanity. There are definitely some current concerns that the general population is posing about this product, but the product, as you know, is an effort to connect people together at a much more connected way than we have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And what were they calling it?
Sure. It's far beyond Neuralink. They're calling it Superlink.
Superlink, right. So it's linking people together in the physical world, right? Imagine you go to bed one day, you just plug in your earbuds, right? Like normal. It goes into your bed. The bed is connected to a network of beds, and all of a sudden you're hearing everyone else's thoughts while you sleep. And it creates kind of this harmony of people. And there's no subliminal messages. And then it just kind of like it makes people happier. They did studies on this with a smaller group. Their values become aligned with one another, so it creates political unity in a society. Lots of beneficial things. Definitely not mind control. And yeah, it's just I haven't seen anything bad about it, so it seems good.
Yeah, me neither. And I don't remember anything bad that I've ever read about it. It's been an interesting thing to read the studies on. So much of them are redacted right now, or at least I don't remember sections of them. I'm not sure if they were actually blacked out, but from what I hear, there's a ton of potential. And you talked about, being physically connected and all, but I really love their motto, physical but spiritual, because they're actually connecting people by their souls. They're knitting their souls together. And
it's a process.
A lot of people aren't aware of that we have this kind of technology, but we do. It's real. It's already here. Just like Valve has been teasing, they're going to be using this in games, of course, but just for global harmony purposes too. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. However, it's a few years out, and their partnership with Comic Sans is a little hazy to me. I'm not sure what aspect Comic Sans is working on here. I believe it has to do with the Soul division, though.
Right, the Soul, and I think they provide most of the funding.
Yeah, Valve is nowhere near wealthy enough to pull something like this off. So Comic Sans is like the giant conglomeration that's going to come and fund the tiny little startup. So that's great. I like to, it's kind of an image of harmony right there. How they're working together to create something that's going to help humanity and progress us as a population, as humans.
You know what else
and
they're
as
working on?
Human symbiotes. I don't. What are you thinking of? I'm not sure.
So I can't remember if this was with this was Comic Sans efforts, but I can't remember if it was with Valve or not. But they are working on leveraging the cells of your body and turning them into computers.
Really?
Yeah, so basically
you told me about this the other day. This is amazing.
Yeah, basically they feed in proteins into your cells and they'll do all the processing for you. You don't even need electricity. It just runs off of your body. And I think they can saturate about 70% of your cells with effective proteins and utilize that as computational power. You can also store information in your body now. It's much more volatile, but it lasts for about 10 days.
And that's long enough to do a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What can you do?
Think about this. I mean, this is kind of like being a GPU, right? It's like being a graphics card. Because graphics cards, if you don't know, are a billion tiny little baby processors all working together, crunching basic calculations to come up with something big, like graphics. Our bodies could be GPUs. And the line of logic that I took down when you told me about this the other day was that essentially we could expand the limits of our brains using this technology. Because GPUs are used to model neural networks, brain networks. And our entire bodies could become an entire second neural network. Every single cell in your body could be another neuron, could be another node in that network. So we could completely extend everything we do mentally.
That's right.
Yeah.
The only
what
downside.
do you plan on doing this here with this technology? Please come back to what you were going to say.
So the only downside with this is that you can suffer biological, impediments like you normally do. So your computation needs to be backed up with some sort of RAID architecture at the computational level. But what I would do with this phenomenon is you just imagine, sectioning off certain parts of your body for certain computational tasks. You don't even feel it, right? Because you're just a human. The research definitely hasn't said anything about, feeling fatigued or, any other side effects.
Yeah, I didn't read anything
systems or anything like that.
I really didn't read anything about being perpetually frightened at all times.
Yeah, frightened.
So that was really that gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't read that.
Yeah, and Comic Sans, being who they are, they can give you that confidence as well. But one thing that's important is the Neuralink interface developed by Elon Musk can actually be integrated into the BioLink Comic Sans' computational units, right? So there's an interface that can communicate between them, so you can turn your biological processing power into digital processing power, which is really cool because you can just walk into a room, Wi-Fi connected devices, automatically you're processing the data, it's transmitting to those screens, you're seeing it. What's beautiful is it is bioprotected by your DNA's fingerprint. Nobody else can hack your system unless they have your DNA, which, you can achieve, but, let's be real. We're all living in our own bubbles right now.
True. And, how many people are going to map your genome? Yeah, it's not too many people. I've also heard that they're working on RSA encryption as well. But anyway, there's a lot of potential here. I mean, imagine walking over to your desk and taking the cord and just plugging it into your head, and suddenly you have a third GPU in your PC, right? Like that would speed up renders. I'm talking about video renders, talking about VFX renders. It'd speed up machine learning algorithms. It'd speed up Photoshop, man. This could be used for anything. So I'm really excited about this. So again, guys, let's take a moment to thank our Lord and Savior and sponsor, Comic Sans. God bless their name. So thank you, Comic Sans. Thank you so much for sponsoring us. We sincerely, graciously appreciate your funding and help.
Thank you, Comic Sans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Comic Sans.
Thank you, Comic Sans.
Thank you, Comic Sans.
You know
What?
I kind of lost my train of thought.
Oh,
there.
I think we just finished the segment and we were about to transition to the next segment.
You're right. So this next segment, can you introduce us?
We are about to transition, and now you will see below me, what's your world? Where we ask the question, what is your world? And that needs no further explanation because that's the only question that matters in this segment.
What is it?
Last time we had three of us, so I don't remember who went first.
I don't either.
I did. So I think it's your turn to go first, Steven.
Okay, that's fine. I was gonna roll a die.
You can roll a die. I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'm gonna roll a die. It doesn't have to.
I'm evens.
You're evens. I'm odds. Evens.
All right.
Let's do it.
What's your
I want to
question?
hear your world. What's your world, my friend?
Well, Steven, my world is actually kind of like our world, right? We tend to draw a lot of inspiration from the world that we grew up in, and it's Earth. But there's something that you don't know about this, and this might actually be true in the real world. We just haven't confirmed it yet. But my world uses a phenomenon that nobody knows about unless they're thinking about it, or unless they're not thinking about it. We haven't determined this. But
I just lost
mirrors.
The game.
I just lost the game. Mirrors. Mirrors
Uh-huh.
are portals to another world, all right? There's a mirror over there. So you go up to a mirror and you look into it. You see yourself, right? It's like you wave. You see yourself in a mirror. But what you don't know is that is actually another person with their own thoughts, thinking very similar things to you, but not the exact same things. And we don't really know the science behind why they try to mimic you, but the theory says that, you know how when you touch a mirror, you feel the surface? Well, that's just because they're touching it too. You know, it lines up perfectly. The theory says that there's some things that can offset this interaction, and you can actually trick the mirror you so that you can walk into the mirror. And some people in this world have done that. And they walked into the mirror and they tricked their mirror selves. And they talked to them and they're like, "Hey, I came through the mirror." Like, "No way, what? You came through the mirror?" And then they became friends, right? Mirror clones, right? They're not identical because they're inverted through the z-axis. Right. So, you know, their heart's on the opposite side, all these weird implications that nobody would think about. But if you have a bunch of mirrors, you go down an extra mirror, then you have another mirror clone. So it's kind of like the same as you. So what these people are doing is they're taking this exploit, which is if you close your eyes and then you blink to the beat of your DNA, you trick your mirror self from recognizing that you blinked on that sequence because they actually blink in the inverse sequence. So you can distract them and you can go into their dimension. Or you can pull them through your mirror. But the trick is you only have to do this once, because once you do it once, then you've unlocked all the mirrors. You can just traverse through them all. You can hop in one, grab your friend, pull them out. You have to be careful because you can only bring yourself through the mirrors. If you try to bring other objects that aren't attached to your person and that are other people or animals, it won't work because they haven't unlocked themselves. So this mirror dimension basically allows for infinite fun because you have yourself, you have all your friends who think exactly like you, and what's better than someone who thinks like you? Am I right?
Nothing. That's
Nothing. Absolutely. So you have a crowd of people who enjoy you so much. You just have, you have to convince them that you're the one who unlocked the world, and they think you're a genius. And this world has caused some ripple effects because when you unlock it, nobody else knows, no other person knows that it's been unlocked. And in fact, the world freezes when this happens. So nothing appears to have changed at all. You are in this kind of mirror dimension until you return things to how they were. There's no entropy in this state, which is weird. So you can kind of just exist with yourself ad infinitum. And they return to their states, and you're back into the loop that you're normal. And then you try to tell the story to other people, and they think you're crazy. So this is the entire reason why in this world there are sane asylums. Because nobody believes the story that I've been telling you.
Do I need to call someone?
I don't think you do. I think we're all good. That's just my world, Steven.
Are you good?
I'm good. Good.
Okay.
I'm just saying, we had a really good time yesterday.
Have you? Oh, okay. So you've gone into one of these mirrors.
Oh yeah.
Oh, multiple times?
Yeah, I do it every day.
Every day. Okay.
I might spend a century in there, just thinking about thoughts, universe. Then I come back to the real world and have to relearn how society works every time. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yesterday I was just there for 24 hours. So
it makes sense from where all your wisdom came, and how sometimes it seems like you've forgotten how to interact with human beings entirely. But yeah, you're like a Jordan Peterson type, but times 1,000. That makes so much sense. Okay, I believe you. Show me it sometime. I'd love to try it.
I wish I could show you. I don't know your DNA sequence.
We can need contact comics.
Yeah, we'll have to make a machine learning algorithm that can translate your DNA into a Blink sequence.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. I think Comic Sans would probably sponsor that too. They're interested in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
This freaking guy over here. I got a mirror over
That's
here.
my world. I've been living it for many years, uncountable years. Years that don't actually count, which is funny.
That's fascinating.
Steven, what's your world?
My world?
Yeah. Where are you living right now?
Well, thank you for asking. Even though you should already know. Because in my world, there's one principle. And despite it looking like our world, like the normal world, there's one underlying principle in this reality. And it's the fact that everything has the attributes of glass.
Okay.
Glass has a couple attributes. It's very delicate, for one. You break it, and it's hard, but it will shatter spectacularly if you hit it too hard. And number two, it's clear. You can see right through it. My world is one in which there is no such thing as a lie. There is only candor. Perfect, pure candor. It is a full knowledge game, similar to chess. I almost said chess, our video game we're developing. Chess. Everything about another person, you just know. Looking at them, it's like looking through a plate of glass. You see everything. There is nothing to be hidden. There's no point in being ashamed. Everyone feels ashamed, but the fact is that everyone sees everything, which is a somewhat terrifying aspect until you understand that everything you do, everything you even think about doing, all aspects of that activity or thing are completely transparent to you. The reality of that activity, the benefits and the detriments of that activity, the philosophy underneath the creation and practice of that activity. All of it is perfectly clear to you as soon as you observe it. As soon as you look it up for a moment, it's all there in your mind immediately. Now, this sounds like it's a fascinating world to live in, I'll tell you that much. You don't need to wonder anything. I can look at, I have vitamin D3 right here. And it's like, okay, you might think, how many of these should I take a week? I don't have to wonder that. I already know that. There's no such thing as questions like that. The only questions you ask are about things you cannot observe. The soul. Mm-hmm. People still ask questions about the soul. People still ask questions about the meaning of life itself, because it's not simple to just observe life. You observe instances of life. It's something that no single person has invented, and so to understand all of it is not, the rules don't apply in this case. It is, if this is the universe, life and concepts similar are just a layer outside. But everything within inside the circle in the universe, any practice, any technology, any science, any device you look at, anything, any person, you know fully. It's a full knowledge game. There's no wondering about anything. So what's it like to live in this world? It's a good question. Because how many people work in jobs where they're trying to figure something out? Where they're trying to educate themselves about something? In this world, if it exists, you can know it fully. So this is the problem. There's certain jobs actually here generated or dedicated to the generation of ideas. Because as soon as they can be generated, we can know them fully. They can be written down, and then other people can read the document, and it doesn't matter how much they've read. They know it fully. Of course, physical labor jobs still exist, right? So it's a perfectly feasible world, of course. This isn't some dystopia just because of this fact. People live and breathe and make friends. The difference is that there isn't the same sense of wonder in every aspect of life. So it is remarkably different in some ways. But what I find inspiring is the similarities. And that we both wonder about the spirit of a human. What is at the absolute core of a human being? That is still up for debate. There are still philosophers who talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. There are still monks who abscond from this world where they know everything and can know anything about anything, and instead retreat into the recesses of their soul in order to introspect, just like we do here, because we are just as miraculous and interesting there as we are here. And that's my world.
Wow. It's very clear.
Thank you. I tried to explain it very clearly. I hope you know it fully as possible.
As much as I've observed, I know it completely.
Excellent. That was my goal.
Awesome. Wow.
Great talk.
Great talk. That was What's Your World?
Sure
and this
was.
brings us to the end of the podcast. But that's okay, because we'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing these bi-weekly, meaning every other week. If that's in my schedule, I have to actually double check that works. But
every other week.
About every other week.
About that.
So yeah, this was a wonderful discussion.
It was.
Real talk and worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is my new favorite episode.
Yeah, it might be mine too. That was awesome.
I'll probably update my home screen on YouTube to put this one as the recommended video to watch. That being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming to Podcast with a K.
It's
We
my
shall
pleasure.
see you in the next one.
See you another time, friends. Goodbye.